Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bright Spots. I am Laurie Labishak, your happiness ambassador, and I am so excited about this evening's guest. I think you are truly going to love her. And you know, there have been so many negative things happening in our world here lately. There's just too much to even mention, and I'm not even going to go there because I think that we need to concentrate on joy. We need to concentrate on the good things that are happening and not give the bad things another thought, right? So, for those of you that are just joining us that have never been with Bright Spots before, this is how this works. This is an interactive show. We would love to know you're here. So, take a moment to drop a line below. Let us know you're here. Say hello. Tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this is your first time joining Bright Spots. Also, if you have questions for our guest or our host this evening, please put those in the comments below too, and we'll be sure and answer them for you. Again, I am so excited about this evening's guest, and I think that you are absolutely going to love the show tonight. So tonight, our guest is Robin Joy Meyers, and I only know Robin because she came on into the studio a few minutes before going live this evening. But Robin is a fellow member of the Women Speakers Association, and that's how we connected. So Robin is a molecular geneticist turned fear strategist, author, TEDx, and international speaker. Chief Mindset, Wellness, and Leadership Coach, Robin Joy Meyers helps women all over the world to fall in love with themselves and their lives right now so that they can thrive through life's changes. Wow. I just am so excited to hear all about how she makes that happen. So please make welcome to the studio, Robin Joy Meyers. Hello, Robin.
Hey, Lori, thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to Bright Spots. I am thrilled that you were available to come on tonight and tell us all about who you are and what you do. So take us down the path of how you went from being a molecular geneticist. Am I saying that right? Geneticist.
That's
okay. To being a speaker. You've done TED Talks. You've done just so much and so much coming up. Tell us, how did that path happen? I'm very curious.
good. Well, thanks for having me. So I went from that quiet, shy, introverted people pleaser right from the get-go, right out of birth. I was the youngest of three. I had two older brothers, and quite honestly, I didn't even speak till I was almost 4 years old. I didn't have to, actually. So I had the traditional family growing up, and everyone spoke for me. So that's cute when you're really young, but I just did the traditional thing like most women do, right? Be quiet, do what you need to do, stay pretty, and don't speak up. And that's kind of how I lived my life. So becoming a molecular geneticist, the backstory to that is I grew up outside of New York City. I went to college in Ohio. We were just talking about Ohio, actually, you and I before the show. I went to Hiram College, which is a small liberal arts school, kind of in Hiram, Ohio, kind of in the middle of nowhere. So take a quiet, introverted person, anyways, and then put her in the middle of nowhere. And really, I went because I like science. They were strong in the sciences. Thought I was going to go to med school. I didn't get into med school. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to graduate school. And I liked Cleveland. So I stayed and went to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland. Genetics was something that I enjoyed. I got into a molecular genetics lab. But really, the story is I went because I could hide. That was my story. I could hide very easily. I could be quiet. I could do my work. Didn't really have to communicate with people. And that's what made me kind of happy. Fast forward a little bit in that, I did discover a gene, but I actually never admitted to that until my TED Talk. But while I was in grad school, hiding and everyone loved me because I could stay and work, all hours of the night because I had nowhere really that I wanted to go because that was just who I was. But my mother got ill and was diagnosed with cancer. And she was diagnosed in May and passed away in September of the same year. So she died at 53, and I happened to be 21. That just turned my world even further into a deep, darker hole of depression and loneliness and isolation. And that's really how I lived my life. I my whole family still was in New York. So, and that losing my mom at that age really, I never had that adult relationship with her. So I kind of went with what I thought I was supposed to do. I, you know, graduated with my master's degree. In the interim, I had met my boyfriend, who became my fiance, who became my husband. Um, he worked in Northern Virginia, the DC area. So I moved down, of course, because that's where he was, raised a family. And I really went through life like a lot of women do. I was the suburbia mom, privileged to stay home with my kids for a while, loving my life. I mean, I love being a mother. That's my greatest gift, I think, that I've had is to raise my three kids. But the facade was a happy suburbia mom. And I still never internally took time for me because I always thought I would be taking away from everybody else. So I still never knew who Robin was. And, when you asked me about my middle name, I use my middle name as Joy now because I have found my true joy. And I did never use my middle name actually beforehand. So my real turning point, I had, as the kids got older and we had two college tuitions, I took jobs to just take a job to help out, but they weren't a career. And the real turning point came to a head when I had a job that was director of education. I taught biology and math, and of course, and I took a job with a nonprofit that on paper looked fantastic. Um, but my boss was actually a woman, and she switched my brain back to the old Robin. She just did something to me that triggered an old, we'll talk about imprints and fear later on, but she triggered an imprint in me that shut me down and quieted my voice. And I also happened to be turning 53. Two things happened that year. So as I turned 53, my daughter turned 21 that year. Very odd, and surreal. But that was it. It was sort of like something like smacked me in the face, and I wasn't going to go down that rabbit hole of being quieted anymore. And I felt mortality was staring me in the face. And so I just decided then and there that I went in the next day and quit that job. And I decided that I was going to empower women to always use their voice, that there had to be a way that we had to learn to start prioritizing ourselves. And that's really where I got to where I am. Um, that's where it all kind of started from.
Well, that's great. And I'm sure that a lot of women can relate to your story about that aha moment when you realize that there is more.
Mm-hmm.
There is more to who we are. So tell us a little bit about your TED Talk. How did you do a TED Talk? How did that all happen? Was that a goal, a bucket list item? And how did you achieve that? Being that you were such an introvert, and it's really interesting to me, so many speakers that I have had on the show have very similar paths in that they were shy and introverted and didn't like being around people. And now they're standing on stages talking to thousands of people at a time. And it's very interesting to me. So tell me how the TED Talk all came about.
So as I developed my business, I actually started my first coaching certification was for teen girls. And so, because I had a girl, I have two boys and a girl like I grew up with, but I wanted to make sure that she always knew she had a voice, and she's got a really strong voice. So I'm never worried about her. I've always learned from her. So I started with that. But as I worked with teen girls and young adults, then I started to work with moms and moms becoming empty nesters and so forth. I really wanted to, it just kind of, my business was transforming. And so I started to work with a speaker's coach in New York. I started to do various summits and things like this, actually, in podcasts. But something started to shift, and I knew I needed to perfect my messaging. But I felt like my goal and my mission was always to empower 1 million women around the world. And so, as I wanted to do that, I think the way I've always approached the stage now is that I almost feel like, because I have a story and a message to share, and I've lived it, that it's almost an obligation, right? That if I could help that one person who's listening, to help tell their story, to help move the needle for them, that it's not as nerve-wracking, right? So the introvert doesn't like shut down, sort of thing. And so as I did these speaking and coaching sessions, I decided in 2019, I was like, TED was what I wanted. And it was really interesting. So I applied to several TED stages. And word to anyone who wants to do that, it's a great process. It's so rewarding. Don't apply to everything. Like, each TED stage has a different theme. So apply to the theme that's appropriate. It's not like a race to get to, a specific, to all the stages. I ended up at Chelsea Park, New York, which is perfect. And what was interesting is having to actually come out with that I did discover a gene, like I was a person of STEM, all these articles were coming out about women in STEM. And I was like, oh, it suddenly like clicked, like everything started to really click. And so it just transformed into fear and isolation and loneliness, and then how the brain works, and starting to dig in about how we can change our patterns and we can change our behaviors. And so it was really interesting, because my speaker coach, who was the woman I trained with, Trisha Brook, she said, can you just stand up and tell me that you discovered a gene? And it was something like I hid so much from. And she's like, but you did it. Like, just say it. And it was interesting, because it wasn't until 2019, like I actually said it.
Huh. And do you think that it took that coaching to basically help you realize that, yeah, I did do that. I did do that.
Well, I think it was, because, I had those people that even said to me, well, can you really say you're a molecular geneticist? Because it was so long ago. And I was like, yeah, but I did the work for it. Like, yes, I am. And actually, it's almost reignited my sciencey background, and my love for science, because now I'm really digging into more of the science to promote my work, because I think there's so much validity to the brain and the science and all of that. So I'm glad I did it.
So I have your mission from your website, and it says, I'm on a mission to educate and empower women around the world that they deserve to have their voices heard. What do you mean by that?
I think as women, typically we are the caregivers and the nurturers. And so often we naturally put everybody else first. And so I never knew what self-care was. And we tend to take care of everyone else before we take care of ourselves. And so I did this as a pro, where I didn't put myself first. I didn't put, and it was pressures that I put onto myself. So it's not that anyone else did it. And in fact, I've had many discussions even with my family now. They were supportive. And if I said I wanted to do something, they would have cheered it on. But it was the pressure and the societal pressure that I put on myself to not be heard. And I remember just always feeling like invisible, even though I was fully present, for them, I felt invisible. So I want women to really know that they really need to prioritize them and get to know who they are. get to trust their instinct, get to really dig deep and find out their likes and their dislikes. And, you know, frankly, I call them your non-negotiables. You know, what are those golden rules that you're going to live by that people have to come and meet you at? And your family and friends and everything else, you show up better for everything else. Personally, career-wise, you show up better for everything else when you can establish those boundaries around yourself.
So let's talk a little bit. Is that where the 3 C's come in?
Probably. So my 3 C's of life are choice, chance, and change. So it doesn't matter your age or anything. You always have a choice to take a chance to make a change. And that really comes in with starting to really go on that self-discovery tour, really go and digging deep and saying, you know, I can take that choice. You know, it comes down to really trusting you. And very often we just don't take the time to do that. And it's for no other reason that we're worried about making sure everybody else is taken care of. And so we almost quiet our own voices before we speak up.
Okay. So choice, chance, and change. Those are the 3 C's and if you go to Robin Joy's website, and I'm going to share that here so that you can see it. This is Robin Joy's website. She has on her website a definition of each of those. So let's go take a look at those. That blue is absolutely stunning on you, by the way.
Oh,
when I came to your website earlier and I saw that blue, I thought, oh my goodness, you should really, let's see, where was that? Was that under media?
I tried to take off my glasses. I'll put them back on so I can look. The choice, chance, change?
Yeah. Where was that?
That's a good question. I just kind of flipped around a few things today on my website, so.
I don't think it's here. Well, folks, if you come to Robin Joy's website, and it is robinjoymeyers.com, you can learn all about Robin Joy. You can read some of her articles, and
actually, it might be under about, under the homepage, maybe, or under about, I think in the news, there's the article on choice, chance, and change.
Okay.
I think.
Yes, this is where it is. Okay, so here it is. So you're going to go under About and the News, and you can read all about the choice, chance, and change. And Robin offers multiple services, and you can see those here on her website as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those. So Robin, tell us about the speaking that you do, and you are for hire, I would imagine, for speaking. So tell us a little bit about the topics that you speak on, and how can one go about booking you?
So I speak on, my signature talks are about the science of fear, loneliness and isolation, mindset equals productivity, the power of self, which is leads to confidence in leadership. And I think actually the 3 C's are one of the talks as well, the choice, chance, and change. And I do, whether they're keynotes or lunch and learns, or they lead to workshops, I do a variety of things. So I do corporate talks, or I'll do events. Really, I just like the stages, so I'll do any of them.
Is there a particular audience that you like to speak to? Do you concentrate mostly on women, or do you have men and women in your talks?
Actually, in my talks, it's mixed. It's very interesting. And I was just on a summit with a man who did a talk for women about like leaning into love and relationships. It was very interesting. It was kind of odd, but it was really great. So yeah, my audiences are mixed. Some of the corporate wellness talks that I've done are with pharmaceutical companies, and so they're mixed just because of the crowd.
Sure. And of course, because of the pandemic, a lot of speaking events have been either canceled or transitioned to online. I've seen a lot of online summits. I've seen, some online teaching things. Are you also transitioning some of your products online?
I am. I'm totally transitioning. So I was one to travel quite a bit and enjoy it actually last year, including my retreats. I was all over and it was great. But now, yes, I'm fully on Zoom, and I do have a couple speaking bureaus. GenieCast is one of them, and they're terrific because they're completely virtual. So they're really great with the technology. But I think it's you probably like you do now, all the speakers that are doing the online series. We've all upped our game with mics and cameras and so forth. So
Right,
we've
right.
gotten a little bit better.
Got all the toys now.
We have all the new toys.
So tell us about your coaching. What exactly do you coach and who do you coach?
So I do coach one-on-one, and I do groups. And the groups have really transformed a little bit because of the pandemic. So, and that's what my website has changed a little bit. So I'm doing some of the group coaching. So that is actually getting uploaded now as to kind of like a mastermind group coach. So I do a higher level one-on-one. So I only take a few clients like that where we meet once a week. I like to really meet once a week with my clients. So the individual, it's once a week. We have a call. I like to give you homework, and I typically work on what's called the fear method. So the fear method is, about where are you stuck? Where do you want to go? How do you create these routines and new patterns and habits? And the fear, FEAR, stands for forgive, emerge, accept, and resolve. And what's interesting with that is working through those stages. Forgiveness usually isn't first, and forgiveness isn't usually for yourself. And so when we deal with the imprints of fear, and which is all about the science of fear, the imprints of fear, it's you making really a conscious choice to remove those imprints that aren't serving you now, that you may have imposed yourself, or they may have been imposed by caregivers or parents in your earlier stages of life.
Wow, that's really interesting. And because of your science background, what I have read about you is that everything is scientifically based. All of your methods and your techniques, you back that with science.
I do. So I do work for mindset and confidence and leadership, and even the boundaries and the balance workshops. All of them are science based. So it's all based on patterns of the brain and how to pause and stop our thoughts, and then how to kind of reprogram.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
So
and then finally is your retreats. So again, a lot of things had to be put on pause because of retreats, because of COVID and getting together. But you were saying you're hoping to do something in June, and that's going to be someplace really special. So tell us a little bit about what you have coming up and that you have planned.
So in June, fingers crossed, we will go back to Tuscany for a self-discovery retreat. Actually, choice, chance, and change, right? We have a choice to take a chance to make a change. They're incredible. Actually, a year ago now, we had our first retreat in Tuscany, group of 10 total. We go very small group, so it's nice and it's intimate. We do 5 to 6 sessions. We stay at a winery in Tuscany, in a villa, and then we do day excursions out. So it's just absolutely incredible. I did a cooking and coaching session, and it's just amazing when you get out of your environment and can really then just connect. We do hiking and yoga and just a lot of hands-on work, and it's phenomenal. So hopefully COVID leaves, and late June, 2021, we'll be back in Tuscany.
Well, I've never been to Tuscany, but it sounds wonderful, and put me on your mailing list.
I
think
will definitely.
I would love to know when that's happening, and who knows, maybe that'll be my first trip to Tuscany. That
It's so worth
sounds
it. It's so worth it. I will definitely keep you posted.
so. You have some pretty exciting news that you found out just recently, and it has to do with the Hallmark Channel. And I know that some of our viewers watch the Hallmark Channel, so tell us what's up with the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah, so the Hallmark Channel, thank you, has their Home and Family TV show, their morning show, which airs 10 to 12 weekdays. I'll be going out to LA to film actually on November 20th, and my segment will be, whatever you call it, shown on television on the 24th of this month of
And
November.
so will that be about the choice, chance, and change, or what are you talking about with Hallmark?
Actually, I'll be discussing my book, Alone But Not Lonely. And really, the concept of alone is necessary for solitude and growth versus the difference of loneliness and isolation. And then we'll go into, it's actually an 8-minute segment, which is very exciting and cool because supposedly that's a very long television segment.
Right?
Um, so we will talk about morning routine and my top morning strategies, and I'll tell you guys, I really suggest that everyone starts with 2 very important questions every morning, and that is, how do I want to feel today, and what do I need to have happen for me today? It just starts a morning routine, and that's what I coach on. That's what we build on, just to get that all started. So, yeah. So, and also, of course, with the weight of the world these days, and coming into the holidays, holidays can be stressful in a good year. So we're going to try and ease everybody's stresses as I talk to them on the Hallmark Channel.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, it is. It is true. We could all use a little less stress and more joy these days because of just the outside stressors that we're dealing with, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, Robin Joy, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on Bright Spots. And I gave you a little more than 8 minutes, right? Almost 30. And do you have anything else you'd like to share with our watchers and listeners before we close today?
Just remember my 3 C's, I live by them, that at any stage of your life, you always have a choice to take a chance to make a change. And reach out to me. I go to my website. I offer a discovery call to anybody. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling stressed, if you just want to bounce something off, um, nothing can stand in your way. So reach out. You can sign up directly on my website for a discovery call, and I'm happy to have a conversation.
Fabulous. Well, folks, this has been Bright Spots, and this is Robin Joy Meyers, Molecular Geneticist turned TED Talk inspiration, Fear Strategist. And please check her out, robinjoymeyers.com. Robin, it has been a true pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Bright Spots.
Thank you for having me, Lori. Really. Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Well, folks, that is the end of another episode of Bright Spots. Please join us next week. Next week is Veterans Day, and we have a wonderful retired veteran who is going to join us on the broadcast, and I can't wait for you to hear her story and hear all about what it means to be a veteran of these United States of America. God bless. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week.